That they are
You
trying
need to
find
stop dipping into your ketamine stash.
into what? Excuse me?
Now,
Applause breaks out when Kennedy exposed ignorant witness to the whole room.
Society perspective. How do we do this as a society to actually eradicate anti-Semitism? And I think that is the larger question rather than isolated on the FBI.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Kennedy.
thank you all for being here. Ms. Solomon, I want to be sure I understand your testimony. Did I understand you to testify that anti-Semitism is worse under the Trump administration?
Senator, thank you for your question.
You don't have to thank me.
Okay.
Your best thanks is to answer it.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you that anti-Semitism has been rising, especially since the 2017
but has the Trump
Charlottesville
administration
attack.
caused that? Is that your testimony?
I wouldn't say the Trump administration has caused anti-Semitism. Has there been an increase since Trump has entered office? Yes.
Do you see a causal connection there?
Yes.
Why?
Trump has highlighted and platformed neo-Nazis and white supremacists.
Okay. Mr. I can't see that far.
Racklin, you're fine.
Mr. Racklin, I understood you to say that in answer to Senator Durbin's question, the spending reductions, reducing the federal budget would increase anti-Semitism. Isn't that what you said?
No, I did not. I said that the constant threats to cut money to the Office for Civil Rights and the Department of Education prevents the federal government from adequately investigating anti-Semitism and other hate crimes on college campuses.
So you think one way to stop anti-Semitism is to give people more money? Is that right?
I think one of the ways is to actually fund people that are actually designed to investigate anti-Semitism on college campuses.
What's there to investigate? We see it.
We
saw it. Did you watch television? Did you see what happened at Columbia?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it was clear to me that the administration at Columbia and most members of the faculty believed passionately in diversity, equity, inclusion, and the right to hurt Jews. That's what I saw. Isn't that what you saw?
I saw.
Isn't that what you saw?
I saw protesters against the war in Gaza and them using some anti-Semitic slogans and thoughts. I would say, however, that it's hard. I would say,
isn't that
however,
what you're telling me? That's not what you saw. Now, don't get off the subject on me now. You're telling me that's not what you saw.
I'm telling you that it is difficult for the federal government to adequately address the issue of anti-Semitism.
Are you telling me the Columbia administration and the faculty was supportive of the Jewish community?
I think that they are trying to find...
You need to stop dipping into your ketamine stash.
Into what? Excuse me?
Now, if we're going to solve this problem, we need to talk about it. And it wasn't just at Columbia. It was at Berkeley. It was at UCLA. It was at Barnard. And Columbia has a history of discriminating against Jewish people. They used to refuse to let Jewish students come to their university. Now, you can try to bubble wrap this, but that's what I saw. If you want to stop a lot of the anti-Semitism, maybe we need to stop teaching kids to be anti-Semitic.
Sir, I would relish that opportunity.
Let me ask you a question, Ms. Kohab. Did I say that right?
Kohab.
Do you think it's possible to feel compassion for the Palestinian people without hating Jews?
Absolutely.
Would you elaborate on that? Because it looks to me like many of our Ivy League universities, they weren't the only ones. Some universities handled it well. Vanderbilt, University of Chicago, Tulane. But it looks like the administration was teaching kids you got to pick a side. Mm-hmm. You either have to hate Jews or you have to be for Hamas. You can't be. There's no middle ground. Tell me what you saw. You've written a book about it. Maybe Mr. Rocklin ought to read it.
Just because we are testifying, I wrote a chapter in the anthology Young Zionist Voices about what's happening on college campuses, and my book is coming soon. So, Look out for that.
Good plug, but
So let me answer your question.
Can you feel compassion for the Palestinian people and not hate Jews?
Absolutely. I think that what I've seen on college campuses is a pushing of a Marxist framing of the way that you see the world. And this is not only in liberal studies departments. I've taken dance classes, I've taken creative writing classes, where your final project is literally called the political is personal. And what they're teaching you on college campuses is that the political is personal and that everything should be personalized. And there's a global north, a global south, a global right, and a global wrong. And the issue with college campuses and what's happening right now in the United States is that we're allowing ideology to drive violence. A society that says that you can commit violent acts based on your ideology because your ideology is correct is a society that's eroding. And that's what I see on college campuses. Now, you asked if I could feel Palestinian peoplehood, right? If I could feel compassion for the Palestinian people. Absolutely. And every night when I go to bed, yes, I pray for the Jewish people, but I also pray for the Palestinian people, for God to send them leaders that actually care more about their safety. Leaders that put their people's safety in order to propel an ideology at risk aren't leaders. If you look at Hamas, they tout what happened after October 7th up until this day as a victory. How can you lie in rubble after thousands of your people have died and call that a victory? So what I see that has to happen on college campuses is de-radicalization. Until you admit that there's a radical ideology happening on a college campus, you cannot fight it. You cannot fight it.
Senator Arano, hey, I know there's a lot of strong feelings in here. We all have them, but each member only has 5 minutes, and it just takes time away from their 5 minutes if you really want to get all these facts out. Ms. Arano.
If there's one thing Senator John Kennedy knows how to do, it's expose nonsense in about 30 seconds flat. And that's exactly what happened in this hearing. What made this exchange so powerful wasn't just Kennedy's sarcasm or his one-liners. It was the fact that he forced people to confront something the media and academia have spent months trying to avoid. The anti-Semitism exploding on college campuses didn't come out of nowhere, and Americans are tired of being told not to believe what they can plainly see with their own eyes. For over a year now, the country has watched footage from places like Columbia, UCLA, Berkeley, and other elite universities where mobs of protesters openly harassed Jewish students, blocked access to buildings, chanted extremist slogans, and in some cases openly glorified Hamas after October 7th. And what did many university administrators do? They stalled, they equivocated, they hid behind bureaucratic language about complexity and context. Meanwhile, students who were supposedly attending the most prestigious institutions in America suddenly found themselves afraid to walk across campus wearing a Star of David. That's the backdrop for this hearing, and Kennedy walked in completely unwilling to play the usual political games. The moment that really stood out was when one witness tried to imply that anti-Semitism became worse because of Donald Trump. Kennedy immediately stopped him and drilled down on the logic behind that claim, because this has become the default response from the activist class. No matter what the issue is, the answer somehow always circles back to Trump. But Kennedy wasn't interested in slogans, he wanted accountability. Then came the discussion about Columbia University, and honestly this is where the hearing exposed the deeper problem infecting higher education. Kennedy said something millions of Americans already believe. These universities have become obsessed with diversity, equity, and inclusion, except when it comes to protecting Jewish students. That line hit hard because people know it's true. For years, universities built entire bureaucracies dedicated to policing language, monitoring harm, and enforcing ideological conformity. Students could get investigated over a joke, a pronoun dispute, or an unpopular opinion. Professors could face outrage campaigns over a single sentence. But suddenly, when Jewish students were being threatened or surrounded by aggressive protesters, the same administrators who usually micromanage every word on campus became completely powerless. Americans noticed the double standard immediately. And Kennedy's point about ideology was dead on. What we're seeing on these campuses isn't just random protest energy. It's the result of years of ideological conditioning. Students are increasingly being taught to divide the world into oppressors and oppressed, good guys and bad guys, colonizers and victims. Once people start seeing the world through that lens alone, it becomes dangerously easy to justify hatred as long as it's aimed at the correct target. That's why the testimony from the female witness later in the hearing was actually one of the most important moments. She explained something that almost nobody in mainstream academia wants to admit publicly. Radical ideology has been normalized on college campuses for years. She talked about this Marxist framework being pushed into classrooms far outside political science departments. That matters, because this mindset is no longer isolated to a few activist professors. It is spread through entire campus cultures. Students are constantly taught that every issue must be personalized politically, that neutrality is immoral, and that you must pick a side. And once that mentality takes hold, compromise disappears. Nuance disappears. Humanity disappears. That's how you end up with students waving Hamas banners while claiming to stand for human rights. Now, Kennedy also raised another point that the media often refuses to acknowledge. You can absolutely care about innocent Palestinians without hating Jewish people. Most Americans understand that instinctively. You can want peace. You can want civilians protected. You can grieve for innocent lives on both sides. But what happened on many campuses went far beyond compassion for Palestinians. This became open hostility toward Jews, toward Israel's existence, and toward anyone who refused to embrace radical activism. And too many people in power were terrified to say that clearly because they didn't want backlash from activist groups. That's why hearings like this matter. Because every time someone like Kennedy forces these conversations into the open, it becomes harder for institutions to hide behind polished PR statements and academic jargon. And let's be honest, the public has completely lost trust in elite universities. Parents are paying $80,000 a year only to discover their kids are entering ideological pressure cookers where political activism often matters more than education itself. Americans used to see Ivy League schools as symbols of excellence. Increasingly, people see them as factories for radical political indoctrination. That's a massive cultural shift. You can even hear the frustration in Kennedy's tone throughout this exchange. He's speaking for millions of ordinary Americans who are sick of being told that obvious reality isn't real. People watched the footage. They saw protesters praising terrorism. They saw Jewish students being targeted. They saw administrators hesitate to condemn it. No amount of academic spin can erase that. And the broader political implications here are huge. Republicans have increasingly recognized that education, especially higher education, is becoming one of the biggest cultural battlegrounds in America. The left dominated universities for decades with very little resistance, but now parents, voters, and lawmakers are pushing back harder than ever. We're seeing investigations into campus discrimination. We're seeing pressure campaigns against university presidents. We're seeing donors pull funding. We're seeing states challenge DEI bureaucracies directly. And honestly, a lot of these universities brought this backlash on themselves. When institutions spend years policing speech selectively, eventually people notice who gets protected and who doesn't. That's why Kennedy's performance resonated so strongly. He cut through the scripted talking points and forced the witnesses to confront the contradiction directly. Because at the end of the day, Americans don't want universities teaching students to hate each other. They don't want ideological radicalization disguised as education. And they definitely don't want schools pretending anti-Semitism is somehow acceptable as long as it's wrapped in activist language. This hearing exposed that problem in front of the entire country. And judging by the reaction online, a lot of Americans are done staying quiet about it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think universities have completely lost control of their campuses, or are politicians finally exposing a problem that's been ignored for too long?